Good evening. I'd like to call the Finance Committee of the Whole budget hearing of June 21st, 21 to order. Roll call, please, Madam City Clerk.
Burns.
Here.
Figgy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Matthews Kane.
Here.
Mello.
Here.
Morganelli.
He will not be able to make it tonight.
Oniski.
He's coming in hot.
Sullivan.
Or not. I'm here.
Adams.
Here.
Alley.
He is
Bean.
walking in as we speak.
Oh,
Here.
yes.
Well done. Bean is not going to be able to make it,
Beltrandi.
and he is not either.
Okay.
Okay, first item on the agenda is communications from the mayor, requesting immediate consideration of the appropriation of $125,000 from free cash to planning, community development, purchase of services account for the master plan for the city of Westfield.
So moved.
Motion's been made
Second.
and second. Any discussion? First of all, let me say that I apologize to my colleagues for this reappearing on the agenda. After the immediate consideration was defeated at the last meeting, it should have been referred to Finance Committee. However, that was not done, so it is back on the agenda tonight. This is something that has been deemed important to many people, so we're going to give it another shot at this hearing. So at this time. So again, my apologies for that. If I would have been thinking straight, it would have been in committee. We wouldn't have had to do this a second time. So, any comments, questions?
Do a great job.
We try. Okay, this is a request for immediate consideration for $125,000. Comments, questions? Go ahead, Councilor Flaherty.
Do you want me to just talk about what it is again? Okay.
Well,
So-
it might be helpful if people understood, because I think at the last meeting, there was confusion between an economic development plan and a capital plan, and there's a bunch of plans being thrown around, so if we could identify specifically what this one is all about, it might be helpful to people.
Okay. So this one is a long-term master plan for the city in its entirety for all the things that you can think of that make Westfield Westfield. So all to do with land use zoning. It usually starts off with demographics. About 20% of the report is demographics, history of the city, where the trends are looking for demographics, what types of things we want to have in the city as far as how the land is used and natural resource protection, how we want to expand things like in our capital plan, like schools and roads and fire stations and police stations and all those kind of massive investments, what we want to do for the taxpayers, what the process will be. Some towns actually modify their ordinances after they do the master plan so that future ordinances require the master plan to be referenced during the annual budget cycle, for example. Like a lot of towns have that, where as they're making the town budget, they have to, by their own ordinances or bylaws, refer to the master plan. So those kind of things can happen here. And what's in there is what we want to put in there as a city. And not us as the city council. The planning board is kind of in charge of it, but we can weigh in. If you wanted to, the president of the city council could put together an ad hoc committee to be on the planning team for this master plan. There's nothing in the laws that say you can't increase stipends, for example, if you thought it was necessary to pay city councilors or planning board members to spend 20 hours a month on the master plan development, that you can pass that as long as you get the mayor to submit the budget. And, there's all kinds of things that can be done, but it's basically what we want it to be, and it's supposed to set the high-level goals and some specific goals for the next dozen years or so. So I think it's really worth doing. It's been very beneficial. If you look online, for those of you who haven't seen one, just search on Google Massachusetts City Master Plans, and you'll find a whole bunch of them. I looked it up this afternoon after I talked to you, and there's a half dozen on the first page that are worth reading. So I would encourage it. We haven't done it in a long time, and I think there's great benefits to doing it. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The example that I cited came from an economic plan, and that was the Riverfront Development Project. That no contractor, no person could explain how you could do that project at affordable rates to stare at the Westfield River and power lines. But that found its way into the final plan. That dog won't hunt is basically, but that was that. There's no shortage of plans that the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission's come out with. on housing, economic development, and very related things and that sort of thing. A master plan has value. You just have a lot of people singing from the same song sheet. The community needs to be involved. I've been involved in a number of these visioning workshops. I have some of the materials. I did this in Holyoke. If they listen to the people who'd be asking for things like safe neighborhoods, good schools, jobs, quality of life things, recreational and that sort of thing. And that's what they were pursuing. And the city stepped up and committed to doing something like with the Newberry site. Turn that something into a multi-use facility that would have office and retail, restaurants, and maybe some properties. But sometimes these plans come off like a wish list, and they don't necessarily reflect the vision of the community. I attended some in Westfield. The cards were pre-filled out. And we were asked, there was a bunch of groups, and we were asked to come up with what we thought would be pick 4 things, and that would be our first tier and then a second tier. And a lot of the cards were already filled out. And the first card that was pushed out was equal opportunity. This is Massachusetts. What does that even mean? I mean, we've been equal opportunity going back before we were in a country. You move to a city for, like I said, good schools, nice neighborhood, the community itself, safe neighborhoods, that sort of thing. What's the police department like? Quality of life things. They pulled it back, but there was all these cards that were already filled out. It wasn't us coming up with things that we thought might be good, whatever, right? And then that would be us. We were being facilitated. And a lot of these visioning workshops kind of fall into that mold, where they have certain things in mind and they're sort of guiding, and you'll have a facilitator at the table, and that's what, and that sort of thing. So if we're going to spend $125,000, and you mentioned the taxpayers, that's 30 or 40 families that will pay their property tax this year, and this money's going to go toward this project. Let's come out with something that works. The result that would benefit the businesses and the families and the residents of this town. That gets us somewhere. That just doesn't line the pockets of, people just, because there's no shortage of plans, and a lot of them have the same stuff that they were talking about in 2009. I've got 2014 here, and they're all tied in, as far as a vision for downtown or the valley, which is all fine, but it all dovetails into what others want, and that becomes an issue. And you ask if 125,000. I'm in sales. Where was the pitch? Where was the last economic plan? And out of that, it was not, I'm sorry, the master plan that was done 15 years ago. What were the things that were actually done? And the benefit of it. I went through, the last master plan was in Holyoke that I was sat in many, many meetings. And in some ways, Holyoke is a lot like Westfield. You have your own G&E and that sort of thing. That city had specific challenges, but at least we felt like we were being listened to some regard. We worked to save the Victory Theater, Springdale Park, the Carousel. That was $1 million of kids with pennies and whatnot. We saved that carousel. That's what a community can do. They ended up with a really nice heritage park out of that, But let's get people involved and not just pay lip service, because this is a lot of money. It comes out of everyone's pockets. And like I said, that's 30 or 40 families that will pay property taxes to pay for this. Let's give them something.
I agree. I would think and hope that the end product of what we're trying to authorize tonight, will be something that's usable and something that's realistic and something that's practical. And you hit the nail on the head. Without community involvement, this isn't going to go where the city of Westfield wants it to go. So it's up to us to make sure the community gets involved in this. this is the first step in a long process. You did say that there was a 15-year master plan. That was stated at the last meeting. That's not accurate. We can't find the last master plan. So we don't know where or when it was done. I asked Councilor Sullivan when he was mayor if they had one, and he said no. So, I mean, this is well long overdue. I think that if this gets going, it's going to help the council look towards realistic goals and how to get to those realistic goals, so.
The last one that I could find that even kind of came close was August of 2009 under Mayor Belanger. And it basically, it was rethinking the downtown,
Yeah, but just-
you know,
Yeah.
and it included things like the rail trail, Main Street, you know, the Business Improvement District, and we saw what a smashing success that was, you know, and different things like that. So they've been working on it, you know, as far as like, you know, the goals were laid out, you know, and that's what we've been pushing for with, you know, spaces for arts and entertainment, the trail development, obviously the riverfront, Elm Street revitalization. But when you look downtown and in the area, I mean, we've got a lot of businesses that are shuttered prior to COVID. COVID really put it, you know, let's deliver for the people. I don't mind, we're going to vote for this, we'll vote. But let's, as a city council, insist that we're listening to people, because you don't need to spend $125,000 to come up with good ideas. I worked in advertising and worked with a lot of big clients and a lot of small ones. We worked for the people, we produced results. That's what they were paying for us to do. And they weren't throwing $125,000 to come up with good ideas, and there were a lot of good ideas. So I'll support this, but as a council, I would say we need to insist, and the mayor, and everybody, the residents, participate. People have good ideas. If the council or the community can get behind something, this community steps up over and over and over again. This is an amazing place to live. A lot of us chose to live here.
Mhm.
Let's deliver for the people of Westfield.
I agree. Council Flaherty?
Yep, thank you. And I agree, it's all about who shows up, sorry. It's who shows up. If 10 people show up and they're the 10 people that participate, they get to drive the ship, right? That's the way it's working. And you see how effective the bike group is, for example. CGRT shows up. Every time there's anything to do with CGRT, they show up in force and they make an influence, you know, they influence what we do. And you need that in this case too, and you also need some expertise inside of city government, maybe on the council and planning board, to say, hey, you know, that's a great idea, but that's like, you know, going to the moon and we can afford to maybe, you know, go to McDonald's, you know, kind of thing. You have to have some person who's grounded in reality to look at these things. Otherwise, you'll end up with all these fantastical plans like we've seen, like that riverfront development thing. But it's all about who shows up. So I agree 100%. If the council wants to get involved, the president should set aside a special committee to be involved, or individual councilors who want to associate with the planning board can do that, because it's a huge effort. And I think who shows up is what's going to matter. So go ahead. I'm
Thank
for
you.
it, but
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Harris?
Yes, quickly, I'm going to vote yes this evening, but I just want to make sure that our taxes do not go up because of this.
Okay. Anybody else?
it's a free cash transfer from
It's a free cash. transfer.
FY21 free
Right.
cash. Yep.
Yeah, so shouldn't affect the taxes. Roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Harris,
Yes,
Matthews King,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Oniski,
I've got a procedural question. Since I
Yes.
walked in a few minutes late and didn't hear everybody, can I still vote?
Sure.
It was only pretty much Dan and Dave. You heard them.
That's a yes then, Madam City.
2 yeses for Onitsky.
Yeah.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Alley.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a budget hearing for emergency management. That is 1291. Steve, I see you back there. You want to step to the microphone? Introduce yourself to the council, for I think there's some people that don't know who you are.
Good evening, councilors. You probably don't because we haven't been able to meet in person. My name is Steve Malakov. The mayor appointed me back in September to fill for Jim Wiggs and relieve Nina and Joe Rouse because they were trying to do multitasking. It was quite a strain on them. It's good to be here. It's my first time. So, don't know exactly the procedure that we go through, but I'll answer any questions that you may have.
You want to give us a brief overview of your budget, please?
Well, originally when I met with the mayor, I thought I had a pretty good budget, and then when I saw their printout sheet, we came up a little short. Last year, the RAVE emergency system was approximately $7,300 and some odd dollars. I did explain there was going to be a 3 to 5% increase this year, which they did do. This year's total is $76,5652. And my budget total is going to be $7,200, and that includes approximately $500 for the phone. So we are looking at $81,6052. So we have a shortfall. And that's just to keep the alert system going, even if we were to turn the phone off.
Okay. Can I ask the auditor to give us an explanation, please? Will you share the mic with her, Steve?
Hi there, Vicki Morrow, City Auditor. We are currently, Tammy Teff, the purchasing agent, and I are currently working with RAVE. She did send them some messages and called them this week about renegotiating that to fit within that budget. I realized that that came up a little bit short, and so we're working to try and rectify that with the current budget that's already there. If not, we are, the mayor and I discussed it, and we are proposing to make an adjustment potentially to this if we can't get that resolved with RAVE. So.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the council? Council Flaherty.
That system's the system that telephones everybody?
That's the emergency alert system, yeah.
Does
Something happens, you send out an alert that goes out to everybody who's signed up, and I mean, we need to get more people signed up. Ideally, like to have every household, every citizen signed up for it. So we've got to go out and push for that.
Does the school use it as well?
I believe the school uses something similar. I don't believe it is the RAVE.
Well, why wouldn't we combine both systems and make one computerized system that's capable of calling?
I believe it's how the computers might be set up. I can look into it with Lenore and see if it is split that way. And
To me, I'm kind of a technology guy, and I know how they work, and you basically need a telephone list, and then you record your message, and you say, call everybody on this list. And whether you're calling about school issues or emergency issues, it's the same process.
Well, it's getting the people signed up, and then getting them not to complain when they sign up. That's the
Right.
problem.
Yep. All right.
But yeah, I can speak with Lenore, and we can work on that and see how that system is sent out through.
Yeah. You might be able to just have one computer system and two different lists.
Well, there is, when people sign up, they choose where they want to go within the city, as far as want to be notified for the school system or notified for emergencies. So currently, they have two lists that they can sign up for. Is there a way to combine them? That's something that, yeah, I will definitely speak with Lenore and see if it's possible.
All right, thank you.
I think the problem being is when you push that button, is the computer going to know how to separate them?
Sure.
That maybe there's a coding in there that you could.
There is. Some candidates actually have a list, and it calls people at election time to tell them, who to vote for and
Then
stuff.
that is something I will definitely speak with Lenore about and see if we could combine them.
Yeah. Not me, by the way. I hate them.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, a couple questions here. First, is this budget legitimate? I mean, is it good enough for what you need to do?
No.
Okay.
To be honest with you, we've never had anything serious here. Even 2011, we had a tornado. Wasn't a bad one. Didn't affect the whole city. We had the ice storm, did affect a lot of the city. But we have nowhere near had any issues. We are, if everybody knows, we're on a fault line. We've all felt the tremors. Some are a little harsher, some are a little softer, but they're out there, so we're on a fault line. Are we prepared? I don't think so. If we were to have an incident every single month, you would be looking at emergency management in a whole different picture. But because really the last time we had anything happen was 2011, and then of course the pandemic, but that was countrywide. And you all know what happened during the pandemic. You saw what went on. Everybody scrambled. Jim Wiggs worked his butt off. Dispatch, Joe Rouse, everybody was working. So we're really not prepared. I've prepared a package for each one of you counselors. It tells you a little what goes on with emergency management. And in the back, it also talks about our dams and levees and their classifications. We don't have any class 3 dams or levees. They're all class 1, class 2. And when you read what class 1 and class 2 are, you're going to say, okay, what are we doing? And here's some great ideas from these counselors. We want to do this, we want to do that. How are we going to protect it? I've reinstituted the CERT system, which is Community Emergency Response Team. And what that is, everyday citizens that want to go out and help when we have emergencies, or even help out in the community. As the police chief is going to tell you, in the next couple of years, he's going to lose an awful lot of officers. With the new restrictions that the state's putting in across the country with defund the police and everything else, he's going to be shortchanged a heck of a lot. CERT can step in and help him. Cost the city nothing for CERT. MRC cost the city nothing. During 2011, we ran the shelter at Juniper Park for the city of Westfield. Staffed it 24/7, and it cost the city nothing, except for the meals that the college provided for everybody that was there. CERT is a big benefit to the cities. If you Google them, you'll see what they do. Down south, out west, because we don't have the everyday events here that they do, the tornadoes, the hurricanes, the floods. But what happens when we do? If that earthquake hits big enough and takes out one of our dams or levees, what do? We have 3 bridges in and out of this city. If those 3 bridges go, how do we get out? How do they get in? FEMA's going to tell you straight up. Something happens, we're not going to be there for 72 hours. You're all on your own. You have to feed yourself, you have to do whatever you have to do on your own for 72 hours. This is where emergency management comes in, being prepared. Part of this job, I think, is involving the community, as Councilor Flaherty said. You got to prepare the people. You got to teach them how to limit the damage and destruction that can happen. Even if it means to go in everybody's house, you want everybody to know how to shut off their main gas valve, how to shut off their water valve, their electricity. And that's only going to help out the city. They'll help out the fire department, because they don't have to go down to a whole street where every house is on fire because they had gas leaks. They can go somewhere else in the city. Part of what emergency management is preparedness, CERT, preparedness. Can I do this on a $200 budget for the year? No. Will I seek out every grant that I can get my hands on? Yes, because I need the grants. We were fortunate when I took over, there was 2 grants available, the EMPG grant, and then there was a fiscal 19 round 2 grant that we won for another $5,000. Luckily we did. The equipment has not been maintained. Our shelter trailer, and I think you've all seen that. If you haven't, I can get you pictures. I had to move it across the parking lot so I could take the tires off. Just in that 75 feet, 2 tires blew out. What if we needed that in an emergency? It wasn't leaving the IT center. So we now have tires on those vehicles where we can hook up to them and go somewhere. There's a lot of preparedness. And if you all take one, which I will leave, you're going to see there's a lot, an awful lot.
You know, my next question was your vision. I guess we have it here, so you answered before I could ask. I appreciate that.
My vision is to have us independent of the state and the federal, because they're not coming right away. We need to take care of our own. Working on right now with Senator Vilas. I'd like to get at least $1.5 deuce for the city. If you don't know what $1.5 deuce is, and you probably all do, you've seen them around, they'll drive through 5 feet of water. So even if we do have flooding, fire department can't go through there, our cruisers can't go through there, but $1.5 deuce can go through there. Would we need some more emergency equipment? Yeah, I would love to have it if I can get grants for it. I want us to be prepared, because that saying, not if it happens, it's when it happens. And You see the weather changing. Things are changing. So when it happens, are we going to be prepared? You talk about giving the taxpayers their money's worth? Well, that's what we need to do, is give them their money's worth. We need to protect all these projects that you want to build, the new schools, if you want to do a new fire department. What good will they do if they're underwater and they're not prepared? What good will it have all these new projects set up for housing if they're underwater? And people can't get in, can't get out. We need to prepare. We're in a very, everybody here knows exactly what Coles Bridge has done for the city. It's caused havoc for the fire department. They were able to get a waiver for their ambulance, but what about their ladder trucks? You know what that does for that south side of town? They have to go all the way around. So my vision is having us prepared for whatever comes our way and whenever it does come.
Okay, thank you. As long as you can pass those around to us, so we really like them.
Any other questions from councilors? Councilor Allen.
I'd just like to make a comment. Steve has worked in this field for years and done a great job, and we're lucky to have people, like the people on the Flood Control Commission, and they're telling us what we need to do. And that's the stuff that we need to be focusing on. Because the devastation, it's going to be very tough to overcome. We got our heads handed to us just economically, like I said, in the last year. And, people are doing what they can to survive, but we need to be doing our part as well. And it's a matter of, we teach kids how to survive all kinds of things, scouts and stuff like that, all kinds, situations where you have nothing. You'll have, and Jim, you've dealt with people, right? Like things happen. And if you don't have some idea of how to survive or do something, that's not really the circumstance that you want to be learning.
You don't want on-the-job training.
No, because you don't have time. And we're kind of like the low spot. Hamden Ponds is the remnant of Lake Hitchcock. Out of the whole Connecticut Valley, you're at the bottom, you're right near the drain. So that used to be a 184-mile lake, moved mountains around. So we're low.
That brings another point. When schools are now reopening, now that COVID is settling down, we also go into the school systems and we have what we call the Teen Cert program, where they're 13 and up. And we teach these kids how to do the same thing that CERT team members do. And you've all seen the stories. Kid in school took the CPR class, a classmate or a teacher collapses. They go over and they start CPR immediately. They know what to do. They save that life. So when this, hopefully, new school year starts, I would love to get into the schools and have these assemblies and talk to these kids about getting them involved in Teen Cert and teaching them and educating them. If they can only save one life in their lifetime, they've done a good job. And that means we've all done our good job teaching them what to do in an emergency. So we also have that program I want to get going too. We have the beginning of a CERT team, but I also want Teen Cert.
Nice feeder program.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Mello.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. Do we need to wait for the information from the auditor and from the vendor before we vote on tonight's budget?
If we pass tonight's budget and an alteration or an adjustment needs to be made, it would be done Thursday night at the reconciliation.
Thank you.
Okay?
Can I just make a point that if that's going to happen, we've got to have something before so that it's not, we can't add that night.
Correct.
We need something to be able to bring in. If it's an immediate consideration, then that could potentially be a problem. So there just needs to be notice. And quite honestly, we shouldn't be sitting here with this budget with something missing out of it that is pretty obvious. So, and this is now the second one. So, this needs, we can't add here tonight.
We cannot.
So just want to make that clear.
Yeah, and if it will be an item on the agenda, so that means it has to be on by tomorrow. Okay? Councilor Flaherty again?
Yep, thank you. And I think we could do these ads if the mayor came in with some blank sheets that you could just sign tonight and give to us, or Thursday night. That would work out well. right? I mean, I don't like doing it that way. I would much prefer having 90 or 120 days to do this, but
I had even said prepay the expense out of this year's budget
Exactly.
because he can move money around. So you can take care of this a whole host of different ways, but
That avenue was explored, and it's not an option, so
Yeah.
that was the first thing I thought of.
it's because it's an
It-
operation.
it's just because no one wants to get to yes, that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah. And then teen-wise, I know when I was in school, like, one of the requirements was you had to learn CPR. I think that ought to be put back in the school system if it's not already here. I don't know Westfield schools, but like it's mandatory that kids learn how to swim a little bit. They should learn how you do CPR. It doesn't take that long, and it could be put in the curriculum.
They should learn all the basics.
Yeah, exactly.
All our schools, many of our public buildings all have AEDs. Yes, they're kind of explanatory, but the time it would take for them to pull it down, open it up, and maybe read the instruction, we teach them ahead of time so that the response time is much quicker.
Yep.
We teach them what to do, when there's a fire or gas. Just the basics of it. They all know call 911, but there's other things they could do beforehand. Our CERT teams get bags, and they have all the tools in there to go around if we have something major, which I hope we never do. But we have the tools to shut off gas valves and water valves and things like that. And if they join Teen CERT, we'll get them the same type of bags. They're an offshoot of it. They'll have all the exact training of the adults. They just won't be able to do what the adults do. When we are called upon by the chief to say, hey, we've got a lot of trees down, we're short of officer, can you go send somebody to block roads, to let people know they can't pass, power lines? Adults can do that, the children cannot, the younger ones under 18. But it's even for the community, the MRC, we've always done the half marathons. We do the Boys and Girls Clubs. Why do they call us? They said, your insurance. We've never had a major event. My biggest event was I had a lady on the run pop her an appendix. She refused to go to the hospital. But that's our biggest event we have. So they have us there. We're insurance. Because if something happens, we're already there. Yes, we're going to call the fire department and send an ambulance, but we're on the spot immediately. And that's why they have us there. So we do all the community events as well, just to be cheap insurance. And that we want to involve the teens with too, because it teaches them also some self-respect. I think a lot of the kids have lost that these days. So if you get them in a good group, you prevent them from going into the bad works.
Thank
So
you, Steve.
That's really a plan I want to see, is the teen certs throughout our school system.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
Mr. President Pro Temp, I move approval of the Emergency Management Department's budget as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call, Madam City Clerk?
Burns.
Yes.
Figgy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
No.
Harris.
Yes.
Matthews King.
Yes.
Mello.
No.
Oniski.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Alley.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank you, counselors.
Next item on the agenda is the Conservation Commission. That's item 1171. Meredith? How are you? Good. Nice to see you again.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meredith Bornstein, Conservation Coordinator. Is it my turn to talk? Sorry, I actually haven't been in front of you guys before. So forgive me, and please feel free to tell me when I should proceed. But this is the budget for the year. I met with Vicki and Mayor, I think it was in January, and there's really not many changes, just the normal 2% salary increases, and a small increase in mileage, and a small increase in purchases for, we have purchases for if we need a translator for the commission, and also we're asking for a little bit increase in, to maintain our conservation lands. It comes up to a $3,000 increase from last year. And that sums it up. I can go over line items or...
Any questions from the council? Council Flaherty and Councilor O'Neill.
Just, can you take a minute and just tell the public what the Conservation Commission does? It doesn't sound like a regular board and commission like they're used to. It sounds like there's an active set of stuff they do, and you're obviously a full-time employee. So can you tell people what you do? Right.
Yes, so the Conservation Commission, there's one in every town in Massachusetts. We are Our job is to implement the Wetlands Protection Act and also the Westfield Wetlands City Ordinance, the Wetlands Bylaw, Ordinance 1109. And yeah, it's a full-time job. There are many, many resources in Westfield. A lot of the city is in the floodplain, and that every time something happens in the floodplain, somebody has to file a permit, and it's a whole process. So and there's also not just floodplains, but wetlands and buffer zones. There's a 200-foot riverfront area that starts at the edge of any perennial stream. So most of the city is in our jurisdiction, and we're operating under a state law and a city ordinance. So it's a very busy place, and there's a lot of activity. Everyone being home in the past year, there's many new garages and sheds and pools, and every time it's in the buffer zone, they have to come in front of the board. So that's what we do. We also manage our conservation lands. There's only a few in town, and we want to work on conserving more property, but my goal is to maintain them for invasive species and put in trails so the public can access our open space.
Great, thank you.
That basically sums it up.
Good. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Meredith. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Working on my tan, as you can see.
Yeah.
I've got a little project that's within this jurisdiction, but she's exactly right. The whole town is basically, I live down to the ocean. We didn't have this much, it's like living on an island around here. As far as the invasive species, as you already know, like that whole end of Union Street with the Gulf Acres and that whole side, we have a serious problem. It's also on the levees. Not only do we have trees that are not in places that they shouldn't be, and obviously they're in water and stuff like that, but they're being killed by bittersweet and a couple of other invasive species, but bittersweet is really doing a job on that. Gulf Acres has done a really good job trying to clean stuff up, but it will strangle trees. And Union Street, the part that I'm familiar with, is under where Dave lives. You got Eastwood Drive, Springdale, Paper Mill. That ridge is in danger. That's kind of being held by trees now rather than grasses. And that end of all the way down to like Home Depot. When you drive down there, you can see it, especially in the wintertime when there's no leaves on trees. All those vines are strangling and killing those trees. And as that spreads, it's going to make its way up Ridgecrest. Because people pay a view tax not to look at my neighborhood.
No, there's no view
That's
tax.
what's holding up that hill.
There's no view tax.
And so you have a situation where if those trees start dying, okay, they're coming down. And that's what's holding up that Eastwood Ridge. That's, that used to be the river, like Ridgecrest. These used to be, there used to be a river here. But that's what's holding up those ridges. And we're not relying on grasses, we're relying on trees at this point, which is not usually the best thing. Because when they come down, they're not really supposed to be there to begin with. And when they come down, they're going to be bringing down the soil and everything. And it's bad. So do you have any plans, or is there anything, even when I posted things, there were actually people on Facebook willing to volunteer to help get rid of that, because they have their own problem in their own yard, perhaps. They were kind of aware of it. So do you have any plans to try to even get community, the volunteers to even like do stuff, or have a plan for that?
Private property, or is that on city property? I mean, I was just.
Well, no, I think most of it would be private property. I mean, I don't know who owns every piece of land, but some people are very familiar with bittersweet, let's say being in their own property and having to deal with it.
Yes.
So they know how bad it can get, and you just have to like cut it or at least curtail it so it's not strangling the tree. You probably know you have to get rid of it. It's very difficult,
Right.
but at least keep the trees from being killed.
Yeah, so every person that comes in front of the board with a permit, we often ask them to treat invasive species, especially bittersweet, on their property. I don't have a citywide plan right now to treat invasives, and I'm certainly interested in doing that, but.
I was surprised because like we were only dealing with it. I only happened to mention it, and then all of a sudden, like there were literally, we were busy with other things, but there were people volunteering on Facebook that were willing to just come down to like Union Street and to try to do something to mitigate it. Either help cut the roots or just cut the stems and cut the vines to at least
right, and you
mitigate
see
it.
It's being maintained. Actually, I've noticed on the bike path It's just at least being cut at the base of trees, so
Yeah, that helps.
it's something, but it's a vigorous plant and it needs,
Oh, it'd be constant, but that would be a good
management-
step
a
to at
management
least
plan, really.
save a tree that it wouldn't
I-
die.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do as much public outreach as I can for
Right.
invasive species control, and like I said, every one that comes in front of me with a RDA, I'm asking them, okay, well, yeah, you can, sure, you can put your shed there, but let's try to deal with some of the invasives on your property.
Right.
And I have to educate people on, I mean, you can't just, the roots are very deep in,
Oh, it's almost impossible, and a lot of people don't realize it's going to kill the tree until it gets really, really big, and then the trees die.
Counselor, I
Can we
think
take
this
the
is a
bittersweet
conversation for another
Sorry.
time,
Yep.
yeah.
because
we
it's
should-
not really impacting the budget, so I think it's a great idea for natural resources, but we need to keep moving this one along. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to.
Any other questions? Counselor Aninsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Meredith, you're doing a great job with your staff and the commission. So I want to publicly say that when there's meetings, some of them could be very contentious. No one's going in there happy. Hopefully they're coming out happy, or at least going out knowing they had a fair shake at it. So I really appreciate that. And another question really about the budget. Is $600 enough for traveling? Because, I mean, you're back and forth to sites all the time.
Yeah, we probably should have requested more. I just, especially being new to the city, I have to drive around. I want to look at everything. I need to get my eyes on everything that we permit. But
Well, it could certainly be a consideration for next time.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Counselor Burns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I guess I was going to follow up with what Councilor Aninsky said about the vehicle. Do you have a city-owned vehicle? Or?
No, I drive my own vehicle around and get reimbursed for
So you get total reimbursement?
mileage reimbursement.
Mileage?
Yeah, just mileage, yeah.
Now, I know a lot of times that the commission goes out with you.
Yes, and they
And,
need to get reimbursed too. I think they can. They don't actually they don't ask for reimbursement, but they get, if they go to a conference to get educated on the Wetlands Protection Act, which usually happens at least once a year, they can get reimbursed for that, but they haven't really been doing anything in the past year because of COVID, so. I'm not sure if they can get reimbursed for their mileage.
My point is, I guess, it's important, maybe, all these, departments, they get their own vehicle, and I know, it's important that your department should have a vehicle, because I know for a fact, I'm in a lot of those meetings, and
Yeah.
there's a
it's
lot of
wear and
travel
tear,
involved and
yeah.
a lot of,
It can be a lot, but
did you
it's
ever
part of the
think
job to drive
putting that
around,
in your,
look
maybe
at
putting that
everything.
in your budget in the future?
Yeah, and I do need to look into see if the commission should be reimbursed, because they are very, very diligent, and they often meet me as much as they can. They meet me at the sites, so. And I'm asking them to go to a lot of places, these poor people, so. We can.
Thank you. Any other questions from the councils?
With that, Mr. President Pro Temp, I move approval of the Conservation Commission's budget as presented.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Oniski,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams. Yes. Alley.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Meredith.
Okay,
Keep up the
thank you.
good work, and tell your board that they are impressive. Next up is the Police Department. That's 1210.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councilors. Good to see you all.
Chief, Captain.
No surprises for me in the budget. Captain Petoniak has really done the nuts and bolts of the work on this. But basically, you're going to see two areas where the numbers have gone up somewhat, and I believe that they're easily explained. The overtime, we have 6 people that are going to go to the academy in September. We have 2 officers long-term military leave. We have 1 officer long-term injury that we are hoping will be rectified in the next couple of months. And the other area is training. That's somewhat to do with the police reform. We're not sure completely where that's going to go yet, but we do anticipate that there's going to be a bump up there. Also, from our overtime budget, with the city opening back up, community events starting again, we do supply a number of officers for the Boys and Girls Club, for Westfield on weekends, and in particular, Hamden Ponds. So I just spoke with Chief Landis a week ago about what's going on Southwick, and he is just inundated with complaints from boat traffic and jet skis out in Congamon. I would expect that we're going to have the same thing, and instead of just doing our weekend patrols, I would think that we probably have to step that up during the week as well. So I would anticipate an increase there. But other than those two items and the regular contractual obligations that we have, I don't see anything that really stands out to me.
Questions from the council? Councilor Harris.
I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment, 3 or 4 sentences, if I may. As you know, I'm a big supporter of the police department, always have been. I'll never vote to cut anything from your budget, whether it's personal protection or any items that helps you protect our citizens or yourselves. I'll continue to support you, and I thank you for helping our citizens every single day under very challenging conditions many times. Thank you for protecting our citizens. Respect is due to all of you for your unselfish and dedicated professionalism.
We appreciate that, thank you. We really do, behind the scenes, make big efforts to be fiscally responsible with the money. We really do. It's been that way long before I was chief. The department's always done a good job at making sure that we're just not wasting money, that we're putting things in the right place to make things better. So I just want to let you know that I've seen that forever.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilor Olninski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't say it better than Councilor Harris, so I won't try, but, thank you and the police for all you do. And I'm very happy to see that, you're considering stepping up enforcement at Hampton Ponds. What's happened there, previously on the weekends is great. Just being there keeps a riffraff out. Really does. Just by being there, doing boat checks, on Saturdays and Sundays, it really, really helps. So I appreciate that, and so do they. Thank you.
That's definitely going to ramp up in the next few months. We usually don't start until the 4th of July weekend, but I would think we're probably going to be there before that.
Yeah, the last couple of weekends, they've had to shut the park due to capacity limits.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine you getting the calls. Councilor Adams.
Yeah, Chief, I know we've had some conversations, and I know it might not be part of your budget, but this police reform, just quick overview of what you might be seeing next year, or where we are with this.
Well, training is the biggest issue. The Commonwealth, with the legislation they passed, makes police officers training's going to have to be the same across the board, whether you're an auxiliary, you're a reserve, you're a special. If you carry a badge and a gun and you have arrest powers, you're going to have the same training as Captain Petoniak or myself. So that's what's going to make it difficult to take auxiliaries who have just a reserve intermittent academy, which used to be that's all you needed to do what they do. And now they're going to have to take this 200-hour, what they're calling a bridge academy, to update them on a number of different issues. It's 80 hours of classroom and 20 hours or something like that. I don't know the complete breakdown, but it's 200 hours total of firearms, CPR, in-service training, things that we do on a yearly basis or required to do. So I don't know who pays for that. I don't know who it's going to take them an extra 200 hours out of whatever that ticket price is going to be. I'm going to say somewhere on an average of $20 an hour anyways. And who's going to want to do it? I mean, they come out here and they work for free. They're volunteers. You know, they already do so much and pay so much on their own to just become an auxiliary, which is so admirable of their service. But to do the extra 200 more to come out here and volunteer for the fireworks or a parade or something similar, or a concert, I don't know. I don't know if I would expect that the majority of them would do that. So the reserves are another issue. Typically, we can have them work for us now, but they're also going to either have to go to this Bridge Academy that they don't even have set up yet. They're going to have to go to this Bridge Academy, or they got to go to a full-time academy. So the Bridge Academy isn't established yet, so we have to send these 6 officers to the full-time academy, which is how many months?
6 months, October.
Yeah. So that's really the issue as far as you know, where we're going to get the help from that we don't typically spend a lot of our budget on.
Yeah, so I guess we should, just so people are prepared, that your budget might be going up and it's not for something you have any control over.
Right.
So if we see that coming along, it's not that anything you did, it's what's required of everybody, and you may be hiring police officers where you normally would be hiring, people would be volunteering to do this work, so, you know, and I didn't see a new police department in your budget, chief. I'm not sure where that is, but.
Well, I think we're good for this year and possibly next year before we start losing people that don't want to continue on with the training aspect of things. But yeah, the building's a whole nother deal. It's disappointing to us, and I won't, you know, create a new conversation here, but it's disappointing to learn after COVID that the price of building materials and whatnot has skyrocketed. So we were kind of hoping after the school was built that we could, you know, maybe be next in line. We all know it's needed. I know that we've had your support and it's appreciated. You know, but our hopes are dim, certainly not because of anybody in this room. It's just the way it is. So that's where we stand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Flaherty?
Thank you. And I'm going to echo what Councilor Harris said. You do a great job all the time, and I appreciate it. And I've been at some of these rallies where there's behavior that is certainly inappropriate and offensive to me, and I know as a police officer it was offensive to many of your guys. And everybody there did a fantastic job. And if I was wearing that uniform, I'd be proud that I was there, but I'd be really offended those people in that audience were treating me that way when you're putting your life on the line to protect them. So I want people to know that you do stuff that other people would never ever step up for, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
With the training, this is a state mandate, and this is one of the things that, you know, I see it as an unfunded mandate, right? The politics of today are that you have to go through this training for everybody. That's a state mandate. I consider it an unfunded mandate. I think we should be pursuing our reps and senators to fund it. They have to do it across the state, as you said. They might as well put it in the state budget and pay for it all, you know, if they're mandating it. And I also appreciate the people in Westfield not taking the tact of some of our neighboring towns who are trying to cut the budgets of police in half. I think that's totally inappropriate. And I'm happy to say that we're not going to be doing that here. So thank you all again.
We appreciate that. There's certainly a number of indicators across the country that thinking is starting to turn back, where they're saying that we have problems and we're going to start refunding some things because things are getting tough for a lot of big cities.
Yep.
What else I was going to say? Yeah, the again, not getting too deep into the reform because it is a pretty thick piece of legislation, but there was no provisions put in place. They're still scrambling about how we going to pay for this. It's not written anywhere. So there's a lot of great ideas, a lot of needed stuff that's in there. But I mean, when you talk to most chiefs, it's how are we going to pay for this? So, to your point,
right? But under Prop 2.5, that stuff's not supposed to happen, right? When there's a state mandate, they're supposed to fund it. Right?
One of many that they don't fund.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately. Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to echo the other councilors. You guys do a great job. And all of our elected officials, and even our unelected ones. it's the unintended consequences. Like you say, there's some aspects of this that are good. We train young men, so does Steve, not out of pocket, we teach them certain key things for their own good, or it helps help someone else. But they don't have to, it doesn't cost a lot of money. But you're not putting a burden on, or creating a situation where, like this case here, like you say, somebody who's done this for years, their own efforts, sometimes their own money. It's a way to get back to the community. Those are the kind of people you want involved, and they've done it probably their whole lives, right? I'm thinking of your father over there, okay? Don't create another hurdle where a person like that would basically just pull back, right? You did it before you were on council, right? Don't make Americans step up and they want to help, especially when it's important, right? And sometimes our legislators, we need to think, we talked about the master plan. We need to be responsible for what we're creating. Sometimes the unintended consequences hasn't been thought through. That has to be kind of worked in there, and then whatever you're going to do makes some sort of sense and works for people, but doesn't push people out. Some of these people are way past the even retirement age. You know what I mean?
Correct.
And now you want, so.
Any other questions? Councilor Burns?
Yeah, I think Councilor Mello had her hand
Oh,
up.
Councilor Mello, I didn't see you. My apologies.
That's okay, you can go first if you
No,
want.
go ahead.
Thank you. Chief, do all of our response vehicles have AEDs in them?
Yes.
So no matter what, if a call goes out and there's a cruiser nearby, the equipment we need is there?
We have AEDs in every vehicle.
Okay, and thank you. If the mayor or auditor asked, would there be maybe, $1,000 or $1,500 you could maybe lend to emergency management for a couple weeks if it were necessary? I'm just asking, for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
You can't do that.
If we could lend $1,500.
Just to cover
In cash?
the budget.
What do they need?
You can't do
Can't
that.
add to the budget.
That would be a
Well, no, if the
good
mayor
trick.
asked, not if I asked. If the
Okay.
mayor asked, it's a hypothetical.
Okay, as long as it's not immediate consideration.
See, yes, we'll make it work, right?
Everybody gets along here. Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, one more.
Councilor Burns.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, Captain. Goes unspoken for me, you know how I feel about the Westfield PD, But just to touch real quickly, the cadet program, I know it's near and dear to your heart, to Westfield Police. That's your feeder system. Do you see a problem with that, with the budget cuts, or with?
As long as we have civil service, and there's a lot of talk going on right now. In fact, we have a meeting with the mayor coming up soon in regards to, where do we want to go with that? Because it presents a number of issues. With hiring, the pool of candidates you get, you have no control over, whether it's male, female, race, whatever. You have no control over that. You get the list you get. We do have a hand in recruiting to maybe try to influence people to take the exam and pursue a career and maybe end up in Westfield. But other than that, it's out of our control. So if we really ran our own system, we could pick from anywhere. And I think that's advantageous when we don't have to jump through so many hoops. But along that line, there's other benefits to doing it. There's a couple of it's never perfect. There's a couple pitfalls, but at least we're going to begin the talks that, will help with that. But right now, to answer your question, a cadet under civil service, we can get them interested in it, and I think we have a great program. We get them interested in pursuing this profession in the Westfield Police Department, but they still have to take the statewide exam when they're 21. So there's no guarantee that all these years they've come through. We have a couple. We have two, Riley Ledoux and who was it? Jessica Peatman.
Yeah.
But they started as cadets, 14, 15 years old, and all the way through took the test, and they're with us now. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, because I know Springfield, their program, they feed it through the cadet program, And again, civil service is outdated as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a thing of the past. So hopefully we can help you with that, or,
Yeah, the talk is louder now than it's ever been, so we'll see where that goes.
yeah, I've heard it.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the council?
Mr. President Pro Temp, I move approval of the police department's budget as presented.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Oniski,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Adams. Alley.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Last but not least is animal control.
Thank you for the efforts you all put into to help the city keep moving along, so we do appreciate it. Thank you.
Stay safe, gentlemen. Stay safe.
Crossing guard too, I'm gonna take care of that one.
It's not on the agenda, so no. I mean, what is it? $700, $800? Animal control. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you introduce yourself to the council, please?
Yes, hello counselors. My name is Margaret Turgelson. I'm the Animal Control Operations Manager for Westfield Animal Control and Shelter. So our budget this year is basically pretty much the same. The only increases are the COLA increases for employees, and then we are adding on, we're getting a new vehicle, so there's an installation of for the lease for the vehicle, and those are really the only two increases that we have on our budget this year. Everything else is the same.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
With no questions or comments, Mr. President Pro Temp, I move approval of the Animal Control Department's
Second.
budget as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. What, are you trying to make her more efficient? Roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Burns,
Yes.
Figgy,
Yes.
Flaherty,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Matthews Kane,
Yes.
Mello,
Yes.
Oniski,
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Adams. Alley.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate
you.
your patience, and I'm glad we were able to get you a vehicle.
Thank you guys.
That concludes tonight's agenda. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 24th as a special meeting of the City Council for budget reconciliation. Any kind of adjustments will be presented at that point in time. They do have to be on the agenda, which will be finalized tomorrow. Councilor Flaherty.
Yes, I sent an email out today, but typically at this time of year, we make a motion to transfer free cash to stabilization or to somewhere else. So I'd like to make that motion tonight as a suggestion to the mayor so that Thursday or Monday it'll come in, maybe. So motion to request a transfer of remaining free cash to stabilization. Second.
Second?
I mean, would...
Are we doing it under immediate consideration?
No, just to request to the mayor. He's going to have to send it in and we have to vote on it. The other thing is we
Okay.
haven't...
That's fine.
Yep, and the other thing is we haven't received the request for the appropriation of the $2 million that's in the budget, so we have to do that. 2 years ago, we had a little problem where we had
So
That was
basically
forgotten.
some bookkeeping things.
bookkeeping. So
Bookkeeping.
the 2 million needs to come in,
Mhm.
and then any remaining free cash after that, move to stabilization if we can,
Okay.
if that's what the council wishes to do.
So if I get this right, if he makes an adjustment for another 1,000, it might be $1,999,000.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, got it. All right.
Whatever's left, yep.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Councilor Harris.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.